Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful Monday morning. This is chapter 2 of how to get color in a shade garden. I had no intentions of making a second one, except I saw how many views I had on my first one. So I might as well show you what changes I made, because things don't work out and gardening is always changing. If you remember from chapter 1, if you bothered to watch it, when we moved here in 2011, there was absolutely nothing back here with the exception of mud and moss. There was a very elderly couple here with a little dog, and it was a hot mess. There was nothing here except shade from 8 oak trees and depleted soil. So after crying about buying a house with no garden, we decided to invest money up front, and we ordered 35 yards of compost. We also hired it to be spread because we're too old for that. So that was, to me, money well spent. After that, we do all the labor, but I'm way past shoveling 35 yards of compost. But we put it right on top, about 3 to 4 inches deep, and I just planted right in. I didn't till it in. We have too many tree roots. The viburnums were here, and the oak trees, and some of these very, very old pines, but that was it. No walkway, no patio, strictly mud. So let's go back over here to kind of my work area where I started chapter 1, and I've got my struggling but doing pretty good limelight hydrangeas. This is only May. You know, they should be much denser, but they just get you know, some sunlight. I just wanted something to grow there, and when I read up on hydrangeas, it said limelights would do okay. Oops, there's my upside down barrel. But I have to say that in August and September and October, they look pretty doggone good for shrubs that are struggling to survive. They're doing as well as I would expect them to do without enough sun. Then, going over here, I've got a quick-fire hydrangea, which is doing well. But behind it, I've got 2 very, very old Mac type big head, mop head hydrangeas that were here when we moved in the front of the house. We brought them over here. I think this very harsh winter pretty much killed them. My plan in the fall is to just dig those suckers out and put in 2 more quick fire hydrangeas, which are one of my favorite hydrangeas. It'll get enough sun, and they bloom regardless of the winter because they bloom on new wood. Then we've got kind of a hot mess going on here. I had a very invasive type of Japanese anemone, which I couldn't stand. So digging, and using some Roundup. This area here has been emptied out of the Japanese anemone, which I just couldn't stand because it was so invasive. I planted a lonely little elephant ear, which is getting attacked by my squirrels and rabbits, but I think it'll be okay. This is a work in progress in this area. My basic ground cover throughout the garden is false lamium, which is that, you can see it's a variegated green and white leaf. I really like it. Some people don't like it, but I am shade. I can't get anything to grow if it requires sun. So between my variegated Solomon seal and my false lamium, I've got a pretty decent ground cover going on. One of my favorite things is this double file viburnum. I have 3 of them. I'm really impressed with the size and the flowering of that viburnum. It gets some sun, but look how beautiful it is in bloom right now. Those blooms don't last all summer, of course, but right now in the spring, it's outstanding, and it gives me privacy from a neighbor whose yard I choose not to look into. Okay, I also love my hellebores, which are in front here. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Lenten Rose. Behind it I have my caged Annabelle hydrangeas. I caged them early so that when they get tall and floppy, they don't fall over in the rain or the wind, and they do beautifully here in just dappled sunlight. The edging that I really like is sweet woodruff. Some people would let it grow throughout the garden, and you know, that's beautiful. For some reason, maybe my OCD-ness likes it just as an edger, and then I just kind of dig it out every so often and just keep it as maybe a 18-inch 2-foot border. Of course, I have lots of hostas. Something else was growing here since I recorded in 2013. Didn't do well. It was probably those dang Hucheras, which for me are a waste of money and time, but boy, they're beautiful. So a couple more hostas there. I think those are Autumn Frost. They're doing very well. I'm happy with them. And I've got, it's a little dark right now, but some Francis William hostas that just came up. They're very small right now, but those babies get huge in July, August, and September. They just popped up. This is May in Southeast Michigan, Zone 5, so things are just starting right now. More hostas and lots of ferns. If you'll notice if you can see what it is, my mulch is our mulched oak leaves. That's big time labor in the fall, but for me, I like that look. A lot of people don't like that look. It's a natural look for me, which is, I kind of have a woodland type setting here, and to buy all this bagged mulch would be very expensive, and I don't think it feeds the soil nearly as much. Each year we put this on, and I'm telling you, it's like digging in black gold after those leaves decompose every single year. So we lay it late fall after the ground is frozen. Then we spread our mulched oak leaves, I'd say maybe 3 inches deep, because we have more oak leaves than we can deal with. It's a lot of work. The day will come where we can't do that anymore. It's just too labor intensive, but right now we're doing it. So let's see. Then I start with a different ground cover, Creeping Jenny. Again, that's not everybody's favorite, but for me, it gives me that bright green chartreuse color, which I find useful in a darker shade garden. Japanese ferns are one of my staples for some color and texture. This area here with my 5 dwarf goat's beard. This was my big planting of the Corabelle Hucheras. And yeah, the first year or two, they look fabulous. Marmalade, I think, is the type I bought. And then each year after that, they would get smaller and smaller. They would heave out of the ground. And finally, I just shovel pruned them and I dumped them. And I bought 5 dwarf goat's beards, which they're not as colorful. They get white flowers later in the summer, but they're true blue. They are a solid perennial. I have taller ones in another area, but these are dwarf. They get maybe 2 feet tall, and the white flowers are quite beautiful to me. So then I'm afraid now that the sun is going to bleach out my little bit of sun. It's going to bleach out some of my favorite plants here. This is a Jack Frost Brunera. I have many of them, and they give me my my spring color with that little blue flower. So pretty. But even when the flowers are done, that variegated lovely leaf is beautiful to me, and I like working with just foliage since I can't have a lot of color. I need sun for that. So between the ferns and the hostas and the Brunera, I've got lots of nice different types of foliage going on. More hostas in the back, and the background of my yard, those viburnum were here, but they were straggly and puny. After all of my compost and the oak leaves every year, they've gotten nice and dense, and I can't see my neighbor's backyard, and he can't see mine, so that's great. Let's see, what else have we not talked about? I think these are gonna go. These are variegated liriope. Can't really see too well. It's a lovely plant, but they need more sun than I can give them, so I think I'm gonna dig those out, give them away, and maybe just do some other Brunera there, repeat something else that I know does well for me, but they're not meant for my yard. They look better than this. They just popped up, but you know, not good enough for me. So let's see. Back over here, if you can see, they just came up also. They get much, much taller. Bugbane cimifuga, I think I'm saying that correctly. They have very tall white plumes in the fall, which smell very strongly of vanilla. It's one of our favorite plants. It does very well in a shade garden. It requires quite a bit of moisture, but with my shade, things don't dry out too well, and my heavy mulch keeps the soil nice and moist. This is a new plant since I made chapter 1, ghost fern. I have 2 of them amongst my other Lenten roses, and they are real pretty. My challenge right now is that it seems like they tend to flop later on in the season. I don't know if it's because they're still young. They get taller than this, but I don't know if it's rain. I can't quite figure out why they get floppy. It kind of bugs me. I might put a little some little support around them to keep them upright. Got my sweet woodruff going on here again, just lining my patio. More Lenten roses. Again, back there you see my ground cover of false lamium. I just kind of let that go and just yank it out where I don't want it. It could cover everything for some reason. I don't care for that look. I kind of like it contained. This is a big, my big mother hosta here. It just came out. It will be 3 times that size and cover this entire area. It's my pride and joy. It's right in the middle of our patio where we sit, and I love that. More Lenten roses, more painted Japanese ferns, more Brunera. As you see, just lots of repetition. I find what works and just keep repeating it, because this is a challenging garden. This is the most sun I get all day. It's probably 11 o'clock right now, and other than that, it's bright shade. I don't have much sun. Let's see. We've got more cimifuga here, the bugbane. I like to surround the patio with that, and we can smell the vanilla. It's really pretty there. I have several of them. I kind of move them around. Sorry, I don't think you can see that very much with the light, and it's a dark-leaved, almost a burgundy color plant, which is nice from all the green. And my creeping Jenny there. Here's more of the variegated liriope, which are going to be gone in a couple days. They're just not doing well enough for me. I can put container pots there, Brunera, something else, but I'm going to give it up and plant something else. Have some toad lilies here, which are beautiful in the fall. Right here is a wonderful plant for somebody who has lots of shade. It's a Korean bellflower, Kirin Gossamer, I think I want to say. Kirin Gossamer, K-I-R, if you want to look that up. It gets huge. I do brace it, and it has yellow upside down flowers, which are very beautiful in the fall. So that's a, I'm sorry, it's Korean yellow wax bells, Kirin Gossamer, that's correct. Had to write myself a little cheat sheet here. In the back behind that little blue bird feeder, hard to see, but I have 3 young oak leaf hydrangeas, which do quite well, I have to say, with my limited sun. They're young right now. It's only May again. I'm repeating myself, but they look pretty good in the fall, I have to say. I have 2 lace cap hydrangeas here, which are just now leafing out in the spring. They do beautifully. Whether or not I will have any blooms this year because of our horrible winter, I'm not sure, but the foliage is pretty, and I have to content myself with foliage with a shade garden. Let's see.